Welcome back to The Explainer. I am so pumped to jump right into this one today because we are looking at something honestly transformative. We're unpacking this really fascinating curriculum from a recent community-based session over at the Rafa Academy. Our core focus today? How we actually build resilience. And more specifically, we're going to look deeply at what these sources say about mindset and internal regulation, all within the larger context of what they call the architecture of resilience. To do this, we're exploring this brilliant binary star framework that takes our internal emotional regulation and synthesizes it with the external structural mechanics of personal growth. It's an amazing combo.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. We're going to start with the architecture of resilience, move right into the mindset garden, and then discuss attention allocation under scarcity. After that, we'll hit the mechanics engine, talk about navigating the frustration box, and finish up with aiming your best effort.
All right, section 1, the architecture of resilience, where we are completely redefining how we bounce back. I really want you to just sit with this for a second. Loss is what happens to you. Failure is what you agree to. This simple quote entirely challenges our absolute default assumptions about life, doesn't it? The source material argues so powerfully here that failure isn't some random event that just strikes you out of nowhere. Actually, it's a voluntary agreement you make when you simply stop trying. As long as you attempt something, anything different, the outcome is still wide open.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks this entire concept down into that binary star framework I mentioned earlier. It's two complementary forces of growth. First up, we've got the garden, which represents our mindset. This is all about warmth, receptivity, and exactly where we choose to allocate our attention. The second star is the engine, representing the mechanics. This is focused on action, depth, and the actual causal chains of learning. You see, breadth without structure is really just a mood, but structure without warmth, well, that's just a lecture. True resilience absolutely requires both.
Moving over to the internal side of things, section 2, mindset, the internal garden, cultivating emotional agency. To really nail down emotional regulation, the facilitators use this incredibly brilliant metaphor. Are you a thermostat or are you a thermometer? Think about it. A thermometer just reacts, right? It just reflects whatever the environment gives it, letting external stress or, a bad Tuesday dictate its entire mood. But a thermostat sets its own internal temperature, regardless of what's happening outside. So the crucial point here is that you must set your own emotional standard, rather than just sitting around waiting for the world to perfectly align so you can finally feel okay. So how do we actually do this? Well, the ROF sessions use what they call a de-jargoning toolkit to make cognitive regulation totally accessible. Instead of throwing around intimidating psychological terms like cognitive diffusion, they just call it hot potato. When you recognize a negative looping thought, you treat it exactly like a physical hot potato. You don't sit there and analyze it. You don't hold on to it to see how hot it gets. You just toss it away immediately. It is a remarkably effective way to make some pretty advanced mental health tools relatable for absolutely anyone.
Okay, another one of my absolute favorites from this internal garden toolkit is Hakuna Matata. And yes, I mean the literal Lion King phrase. It's all about adopting a problem-free philosophy to reduce the strangling effect of worry. And I mean strangling literally here. The sources point out that the German root word for worry actually means to strangle. Worry literally cuts off our ability to breathe and function. So this tactic is all about radical acceptance. It's about stopping that constant, exhausting struggle against reality so that your life can actually catch up.
Which brings us to section 3, attention allocation under scarcity, choosing what you actually see.
Have you ever experienced a deficit focus? It's like moving into a gorgeous new house, but all you can do is stare at the one broken window in the corner. You just fixate on the hole where the energy leaks out, completely blind to the working running water, the full fridge, the safety of the roof over your head. That right there is the trap of the poverty mindset. It's like staring at an empty bowl and completely ignoring that it's sitting on a beautiful masterpiece of a dining table. Compound gratitude asks you to zoom out. Look at the whole picture and recognize the massive wealth of what is not wrong in your life.
And this brings us to such a beautiful concept. Stop chasing ghosts and let life catch up. So the crucial point here is that trying to force life, constantly living in this state of deficit, it completely prevents you from experiencing psychological compound interest. Just like in finance, it's those small, consistent, everyday moments of gratitude and connection that invisibly build up your internal wealth over time.
All right, let's pivot to the second half of that binary star framework, section 4, mechanics, the growth engine, the structural logic of learning. Look, we've all bought into what they call the counterfeit chain at some point. That's the belief that making a mistake automatically equals failure, which then inevitably leads to giving up. But the sources argue that only the first step,
the mistake, is actually true. In reality, we need to be operating on the working chain. Loss happens to you without your consent for sure, but every single loss carries a lesson. From that lesson, you learn, you make changes, and you grow. Mistakes are not failures, guys. They are the required mechanical mechanism for growth. Now, they do this really provocative thing with that old cliche about insanity. We constantly hear that insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? Well, the RFA correction completely flips that. They state that a person, let's say someone in recovery who relapses but keeps returning to their meetings, is not insane. Actually, scratch that, they are doing the bravest thing possible. By continuing to show up, they are actually trying something different. They just haven't uncovered the exact right lesson to change their outcome yet. Giving up, that is the only real failure. Which leads us right into Section 5, navigating the frustration box, processing before progressing. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens next. Between experiencing a loss and extracting that lesson, there is this heavy, locked vault door called frustration. And frustration isn't just a stage you casually breeze through. The mechanics dictate that absolutely nothing converts into learning while frustration is still running hot. It literally has to be processed first.
So how do we unblock this? The facilitators laid out this incredibly clean 4-step sequence, and they grounded it in a real story about a 10-year-old nephew losing a major wrestling match. Step 1, dignity first. You make them go shake their opponent's hand. Step 2, privacy second. You pull them away from the crowd to talk privately, no audience. Step 3, permission third. You validate that fire in their belly. You let them know it is totally okay to be angry that you lost. And only then, step 4, reframe last. You remind them, hey, you lost a round, not the entire tournament. You process the emotion first, and then you extract the lesson.
Bringing us to our final part, Section 6, aiming your best effort, the ultimate accountability filter. Think about effort as two completely distinct paths, right? Vector A is massive, intense effort, but it is pointed straight at a solid brick wall. All that equals is massive frustration. Vector B, on the other hand, is directed effort aimed straight at the target, which yields actual growth. The sources highlight this thing called the tech wire paradox to prove this. A technician assumed a computer bug was just a faulty wire, which is the fastest, easiest fix, but instead he took the harder path of manual diagnostics and uncovered this massive malware infection stealing data. Undirected or lazy effort is just waste. You need precise direction. This directly challenges how we look at luck. The sources completely tear down this myth of passive luck. Luck is an equation. It's preparation, which is your sweat and your time, plus opportunity, which is just showing up. Grabbing a second-place finish out of 2,000 contestants, that's not random luck. It is actively manufactured through years of grueling preparation that perfectly positions you for the right moment. So whatever you do, do not take away the hard work you put in by calling it luck.
So I want to ask you this powerful question directly, straight from the source text. Am I giving this situation my best effort? This is positioned as the absolute ultimate daily reflection tool for personal accountability. Whether you're talking about your relationships, your career, your personal recovery, this is the filter you have to apply every single day.
Let's bring it all home by looking at this flowchart. When you ask yourself that question, there are really only two answers. If the answer is yes, I gave my best effort, but I still failed, hey, there is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of there. It just means you need to aim your efforts somewhere else next time. But if the answer is no, well, that isn't a failure either. That simply reveals the exact next change you need to make. Your behavior is just a scream from the inside. Listen to it. The architecture of your resilience is just waiting to be built. So what is the very next brick you are going to lay today?